Hi, everybody. We have made it to double digits. Ah! Oh my gosh. If this podcast was a kid, well, I guess I can't say if this podcast were a kid, this would be like a huge birthday, but because it's not years, it's episodes, but who knows, you know? I don't know if I could talk for 10 years. I mean, like, I know that I can because I have, but you know. We've kept it up this long. Why not? Um, yeah. So today, uh, sort of under request, I had someone reach out who was very curious about a specific card, and it is not one that we've covered yet, obviously, which is why they had questions. So we are going to be talking about the Tower card. So if this is a card that comes out for you in readings, or you see it and you're just like, oh, that looks dramatic, terrifying, we're going to debunk is the wrong word. We're going to investigate it a little more. We're going to ask her what's going on, do a little check in, see how she's doing. Um, But yeah, so as per usual, I will put the card that we have in stock on the screen, and I'll give you a quick rundown on the visuals of the card. So, um, the colors that are really present are like the pink and blue kind of hues. We do have more like hard colors and imagery off to one side, and like brighter colors coming in. And then, sort of in the center frame, we've got this triangle of like bright pastel pink that kind of points towards the tower. Um, and we have a woman. We can only see her back, and she's hauling some bags. She got some baggage, and she's moving towards the tower, reaching up to it. Got her little grubby paws reaching for the tower. Um, and in the bottom, we've got just a little hint of nature, growth, and it's cherry blossoms in the bottom. So a very fragile but beautiful plant. So yeah, that kind of gives you like a very quick. I feel like that was probably one of the fastest rundowns of a visual on a card that I've perhaps ever given on an episode. Um, but yeah, that's what we got. That's what we're working with today. And I think, like, as I kind of explained the different aspects of this card, you'll sort of maybe be able to put together why some of the artistic choices were made for this card. I know traditionally the Tower card, it's very dramatic. She goes over the top. She's really selling it. It's it's a big show, you know. Traditionally, it was actually a castle because sort of the medieval time period, castles were this image of like strength and stability and nobility even, and um, it was like a really solid building. And over time, it did become the tower, like a taller tower that we see now more and more. But we also had um, this tower or castle that was engulfed in flames, was struck by lightning. There's people falling off it. Um, and yeah, it's just a lot going on. Big scene. Big scene. She goes out with a bang. This card apparently uses she, her pronouns because I don't know. It's feeling right today, I guess. Um, but yeah, we have like this really, really dramatic image of just absolute chaos, just decimation. And I think, hmm, maybe that's why this card scares a lot of people. But I'm just going out on a limb. Just going out on a limb here to say maybe that's why. Um, and in our depiction, obviously, it's not quite that dramatic. Though I did want to kind of cover some of the elements of the original card before we link them back to the card that we have in stock. So, firstly, as I mentioned, the tower. The tower used to be the castle. And then I guess like Christianity went in there and was like, nope, we're gonna we're gonna rebuild this imagery, pun intended, because you build buildings. Good one. Anyways, uh, and they had it sort of linked to the story of the Tower of Babel, um, which I learned. Uh, Babel translates to confusion in Hebrew. Not sure on how accurate that is. Don't quote me. But that's just very interesting. So yeah, the thing is with the story of Babel, the Tower of Babel, I I don't see as many correlations to the typical meaning of the card. You've got like sudden upheaval. There's like destruction. um and there is like a potential for divine interference, that kind of thing. um but it's not like the story of Babel. It's more so like the people they all shared the same language and sort of a common goal, and they just decided to build this tower higher and higher to reach God face to face, and I don't know, tell the Christian God how it is. Say what's up. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what their plan was. I wasn't there. But yeah, I tried to brush up on it. Still doesn't really click for me. But there are sort of other gods that get their little fingies involved. Um, and I mentioned earlier the lightning bolt or the fire that engulf um, the tower or the castle. And these link back to other gods that, other deities that have some influence in different cultures, different pantheons. I'm sure it doesn't take too much investigation to figure out where the lightning bolt might come from. Zeus, um, and I'm pretty sure Zeus has associations or like represents wisdom, which we'll definitely come back to. But the other god that we see sort of enacting destruction on the tower is Mars. And Mars does have associations to obviously destruction, war, and sudden upheaval. So we're not surprised. We're not surprised that he's in there. But I do want to really enforce that I'm using what are these called? Air quotes. Air quotes pretty liberally uh, around words like destruction because it's not necessarily, this is going to sound so odd, but I will explain. And that's what this podcast is about. Um, it's destruction in a good way. Um, this is the idea of like Marie Kondoing hardcore, getting some getting some shit out. Um, you're you're really like tearing stuff apart in your life. And this can be an active choice. I like to think of it as like if it's in the upright position, this is an active choice or something that you've been kind of encouraged or pushed to do on your own. You start to examine your life and look at the things that aren't working and you're like, "Okay, time to get these out by whatever means." And um sometimes it's small stuff. Generally, with the tower card, it's probably not small stuff. This is like some pretty foundational things that you're being asked to examine, to break down, um, and potentially rebuild, reconstruct. This might be literally your entire worldview, and that's gonna be crazy. That's gonna be a wild one. Um, but with fire and with lightning, these elements of destruction, quote unquote, um, they're not just seen as destructive elements. We see like in even in rituals, if you guys uh also follow Patreon, like us on Patreon, and you watched our full moon ritual setup. We talked a little bit about fire representation, and it can be good things. It can be a representation of creativity, illumination, that kind of stuff. Same thing with the lightning bolt. There's this flash of brilliance in like a the sense of light and the sense of intelligence, like a moment of truth, illumination on a topic that you didn't have all the pieces together on, and everything just comes together. You see everything in the light for the first time and you're like, oh shit, we got some work to do. um And yeah, if the card comes out reversed, maybe you just didn't listen when it came out upright. And finally the universe is like, okay, time to roll up our sleeves and rock some shit. Because yeah, that's the divine intervention kind of standpoint. But yeah, I'll paint the picture that you've taken the time, you've kind of built up this thing. You've worked on this thing for a long time. You've put a lot of energy into it, blood, sweat, and tears, to be dramatic. And you've built it up for God knows how long. And then suddenly there's this pinpoint moment, flash of brilliance, and you're like, wait a second, that's not what I thought it was. And there's this element of truth that you can either choose to deny and put off and say like, I don't want to look at that. Um because it might affect sort of this stable home base that you've created for yourself. You've convinced yourself is like perfectly stable. everything's good, everything's well. And all of a sudden, you're forced to look at it and you can choose to act on it. You can choose to deconstruct, take things apart, or just like our image on the card, you have that reaching hand to pull a Jenga piece out and see how many other things crumble. See how many other things were dependent on this one belief, idea, construct that doesn't hold any merit for you anymore. Not to say that it didn't at one point earlier in your life, but you know, nothing is static. Things change. So, yeah, you whoop, little Jenga piece and it falls down. And that sucks. That's going to suck to look at all the pieces, think of the hard work that you put in, all the time and energy wasted when there was this feeble cornerstone. Why did my voice do that? Feeble cornerstone that was so easily like upended. Um, but the good news is, with the flash of brilliance that you had previously, you can more effectively rebuild so that this is a much more sturdy base for you in terms of security and just your own understanding. And then from there, you can build again. Um, I think also potentially there's this encouragement to not necessarily be too tied to the things that you do or your beliefs. Um, and I think that's like, I think that's often a mistake that people make is being so their identity is so tied to the things that they commit energy to, and when there are stones thrown at that, or fire set to it, um or a lightning strike, it it really can create some unstable situations. um and it takes a while to rebuild. There might be a whole period of feeling like you don't have a safe spot to go back to for a while because you got to work on rebuilding some stuff. And like, that's part of the journey. I hate to say it, but that's kind of part of the card. And part of the fool's journey, which is like every man's journey, is to not be identified so wholly with your beliefs and your ideas that you are something beyond that. um those things just, I guess, like, you act on those things but you are not those things. And that's a lot of detanglement work. Oh man. But it's good. This is your opportunity to like really break some stuff down and go all detective mode, looking through, sifting through stuff, sifting through the rubble, if you will, to find the actual pieces that make up your safe base. What's going to be a solid cornerstone for you to rebuild that safe space for yourself? And I keep referring to it as a safe space because it is somewhere that you go, something that you have a part in building. Again, not who you are. And sometimes that does take destruction, or it feels like it does because it can be really shitty for a while. I'll tell you, it'll probably be shittier if uh it's through divine intervention. So, if the Tower card is coming out for you, this is your encouragement. We'll use our card as reference, for this brightness, the pastel arrow, to be something that illuminates you against the dark background. And it's directed at the tower. There's like this pinpoint you can figure out, you can reach, pluck it, and inspect it. See what it knocks down and see how that affects the rest of your life. It might be a domino effect. Like I said, whole thing could come tumbling down. That's the way it goes sometimes. Um and this is a tough lesson. So, yeah, the Tower card is, it's not something that you have to fear. This can be something that you can accept. Um, there are positive elements to it. Like I said, you can figure out what to Marie Kondo and get that shit out. um, what does bring you joy? And I think also one thing that is almost like a confirmation that you've made it through the tower stage, aside from like not pulling the tower card anymore, might just be how you feel in your life. You can look at the different aspects of your life, the friends that you have, your relationship with loved ones, um, romantic, familial, whatever, your workplace, that kind of stuff. Like, there's so many different elements that can be deconstructed. And it's so interesting because I remember there was a TikTok trend in like the spiritual community where everybody and their friggin' dog was buying Moldavite. And Moldavite basically did what the tower encourages anyway. It like enacts this energy. I guess Moldavite in this case would be more the divine or intervention. Um but yeah, it gets in there and it starts unlodging the blocks that you have. And sometimes that's not comfy. Um, but once you have the blocks out of your way, doors open. Like, there's things holding you back that you have to put in some work to deconstruct, and the work can be difficult. But, you know, it is it is a practice of separating yourself from your beliefs and ideas and viewing yourself as potentially even the divine force that is working to, I don't want to say correct your life, but like to improve it, to put you on the right path. And the tower that you built previously, that was just draft 1, baby. We're learning. We're getting better at architecture. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of a better idea. If the tower card's coming out for you, you don't have to be afraid of it. In fact, you can use the energy of the tower and the enlightenment of like Zeus's lightning bolt or the purification of Mars's fire to rebuild the things that you had once constructed and rebuild it stronger. Thank you so much for watching today. Again, I really hope that this answers some of the questions that you might have about the card or some of the worries. And yeah, I will see you next week. Thanks. Bye.